So I would say good evening, Rotarians and all colleagues in peace. I'm Jim Holderman. I'm the chair of the District 5450 Peace Committee, which is the sponsor of the Forum for Discussion. You know, we're about to enter our 5th year of bringing unique presentations on a variety of aspects for developing a more peaceful world. When I speak to Rotary clubs on peace, the most common question asked is, what do we do? Our goal with this forum is to bring thought-provoking ideas, create curiosity, make connections, and develop ideas that you can take into your projects. But tonight, we are extremely excited to hear from Charles Davidson. You've read his bio, a research assistant professor at George Mason University. He's now the director of the Rotary and Carter School Collaboration for Peace. With an extensive background in peace building around the world, we are indeed honored and eager for his wisdom. Charles, the screen is now yours.
Wonderful. So part of my presentation includes some of my work in war-affected areas. Is recording optional, or do we? Typically, I won't give certain bits of information when it's being recorded for the safety of the people I work among. So is it must be recorded tonight, or should I just skip that part of my presentation?
Don't record.
Would like we can stop. I have a lot of requests for the recordings.
Yeah, I'm happy to just skip over those points. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Yes, let's do that.
Okay, wonderful. And then Mary, you'll be joining me in the beginning, correct?
Be happy to.
Wonderful. All right, friends, let me just pull this up here. All right, Jim, thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, I'm honestly thrilled to be here tonight. This is it is always an honor to be able to speak to Rotarians in any capacity.
Whoa, look confusing.
Seeing just how broad the geography here represented tonight, this does seem like we have a global audience. So it's just really cool to be here. And throughout the presentation, if you will raise your hand, your digital hand, if you have a question, I'm happy to pause. I'm a professor. I do peace building work all over the world, but the last thing that I would give up if I had to is teaching, because I'm so passionate about teaching and conveying information. And so throughout my presentation night, if something I'd say doesn't make sense, you want more information, I'm happy to pause. It does not bother me. And if you're thinking it, it's likely that in a crowd this size with 41 people that somebody else is thinking it too. So I will actually begin by letting Dr. Mary Clark talk a little bit about the history of this program, as it was her late husband's idea and her investment, which got this this whole thing launched. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind, take it away. Tell us a little bit about David and the history of the program.
Thank you, Charles. I think a number of you already have known David and his passion for peace. He was very keen on finding the right organizations to work with to really have to make a difference. And he decided, after searching far and wide, that Rotary, with its wonderful network of trusted clubs, and the Carter School, with its world-class expertise in peace and conflict resolution, was a marriage that needed to be made. And it wasn't easy matchmaking, because neither Rotary nor the Carter School initially was all that excited about getting together. But David also collaborated very closely with members of the clubs in the DC area and reached out to many other Rotarians that he met at conferences, and worked very closely with Larry Cooley, who has been helping Rotary with their scaling up. So his vision was that if you could just pull together all the rich ecosystem of peace within the Rotary family, along with the technical support of an organization like the George Mason Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, then much more impact could be made and Rotarians could achieve their peace goals much more effectively. This we did, as Charles said, we made a contribution of $250,000 for a study, which was done by a team, including a couple of Rotary Peace Fellows. And the idea was to identify how the Carter School could collaborate and really synergize with what the Rotary Club was already doing. And that was facilitated by Al Jubitz, who has been a long supporter of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, the Peace Park at the conventions, and he provided the resources to have a conference at the Carter School Peace Center, at the Point of View Peace Center. And that conference led to another conference, which led to a plan, which led to identifying Charles as an ideal person to be leading this. That's a picture of the group at the Point of View conference. So, and without further ado, Charles is the person you really want to hear from. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles, who's got just incredible experience and is a real dynamic leader.
Thank you, Mary. It is always just such a pleasure to intersect you throughout the world. Like Mary shows up at meetings. Like I go to Singapore, she's been there for 3 days. Like she's always here to blaze the trail in front of me, and I could not be more appreciative of your commitment to this, Mary, in honoring your husband's memory in this, and it always relieves some of the burden off of me to immediately personalize this program. That this isn't just about effectiveness in peace building, but it's about one man's vision that's become the vision of now hundreds of people, it seems, around the world. So first of all, a bit about the Carter School. I find it necessary to always start off that we are the Carter School. We are not the Carter Center. The Carter Center is a fantastic institution in Georgia that is run. It's about kind of promoting democracy, and they are a practical institution. We are the world's arguably oldest and largest institution of higher education in the field of peace and conflict resolution. We are also by far the best, but I might be biased in that, and the monitoring and evaluative methods of that are totally subjective. But I do love my institution, and I do think we are among the best in the world at what we do. We are led by Dean Ozerdim, who has been spearheading this effort alongside Mary and everybody at the Point of View conference. And he's the one who kind of recruited me to do this. But this guy is an incredible leader. He is both an outstanding scholar in peace and conflict resolution, but he is also very passionate about the application of peace scholarship and its effectiveness. And so he has really transformed a 40-year-old institution of higher education into an institution that also applies what we learn to the real world, and he's a very well-known peace builder as well. A bit more about me. As you can see, I married up. My wife is an economist at the Aspen Institute. We have always both been in international work. While she is in development, I have always been in peace building. And then my freshly minted daughter, Eliana, she just turned 15 months this month, so she's radically changing the way that I think about life and my work. But my work began when I was about 19 years old. And I started to get this idea. Again, I'm from the Arkansas Ozarks, and I had, really no view outside of the Mid-South. But I started to get this idea that I wanted to learn more about what peace is, what peace building is around the globe. And I was young and dumb enough to think that if I just left and went and learned about what is being done around the world, that maybe I could contribute to what is being done in peace building. And so around the age of 21, I started buying tickets to war-affected areas of our world to learn about what outsiders and insiders were doing in peace building. And the more that I traveled, the more that I found that when people attempted to build peace from the outside in, that they were full of really good intentions and motivations, but oftentimes their actions were incredibly misinformed. And I'll spare you the kind of the gritty detail there, but I started to get motivated that, maybe I could think innovatively about peace building. And I launched an organization in 2009 called Innovations in Peacebuilding International, with just that idea. And we are centered around the idea that peace already exists in the minds of local peace actors, of people who live the day-to-day conflict. But it is our job as outsiders to that context to accompany and amplify those ideas, not to think of ourselves as the outside saviors, not to think of ourselves as people who would dodge in and out of a context and bring all these crazy answers and then just leave, right? Instead, what if peace building was truly centered around listening and the equipping of ideas of people who have to wake up every day, the mom who has to wake up every day and think, is this the day my son leaves to pick up an AK-47 and go join the armed groups? Is this the day that my husband is going to get killed in battle? Is this the day that I'm not going to know where the medicine for my diabetic child is going to come from? Is this the day that I'm not going to understand where bread comes from for my family? They're the people who think daily about how to solve these conflicts, and if we can equip ourselves to listen and partner with local peace actors, that was my gamble on a career. And it seems to be working. In 2015, I got into my dream PhD program at the Carter School and became a PhD alumni in 2019. And when it came time for me to graduate, I simply said, I'm not going to leave. Please let me stay. And so they gave me like a $20 an hour job with a PhD at the Carter School, and I kept picking up odd jobs. And I also have a previous career as an entrepreneur in chocolate. So I had really good handle on how to manage teams and how to start things up. And so I kind of became a Swiss Army knife, as it were, for the Carter School. And so when this opportunity came along to lead the Rotary Carter peace building collaboration, I was thrilled. So I was invited in 2015 to come to the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it was by a group of former child combatants who had a vision for what South Kivu could be in the DRC. It's a province in the eastern DRC. A vision that included the eradication of the phenomenon of child soldiery. Because they were child combatants, they understood the layout of the land. They understood why young men and young women picked up arms and went into the bush to live that life, and they understood what it took to come out of it sustainably. And they said, if you're coming to the Congo, would you be willing to meet with us and just hear us out? And I said, absolutely. That would be great. I'm coming anyways for another purpose. So I'll happily meet with you. I'm going to be in the same city. And so I hung up, and then 24 hours went by, which was now one day from me departing to go to the Congo. And I got another call. And it was these same young men. And they said, we told the armed group leaders that you're coming, and they want to meet with you too. And at this point, I'm in my early 30s. My entire adult life I've spent in war-affected areas, but this was intimidating to me, because one of the tactics I use when I travel to places affected by conflict is anonymity, right? I'm in and I'm out before anybody realizes that I've been there. But instead, these guys were like, yeah, we told all the guys with guns that you're coming and they want to meet you. And I had to reckon with something, because I was afraid. And that reckoning was, are you going to be a peace builder, or are you just going to be a guy that says he does peace building? Because if you're going to live a life as a peace builder, you're going to have to learn how to talk to the guys with guns. And so I took a gamble. And we were driving out to this remote village where this contingent of armed group leaders was gathered, and we got stuck. And I was terrified. We were in this muddy pit. This is the 4x4 Land Cruiser, and we were just burying ourselves deeper and deeper. And I thought to myself, like, we're in some deep expletive right now, right? Because to go back down the highway that we came on foot, the sun was surely going to set. And it was one of the most dangerous places in South Kivu to be as far as highway robbery, kidnapping, murder, etc. But to go forward into the bush was to go on foot into this rural part of South Kivu that, they knew where they were going, obviously, because we were driving, but it was going to be a long journey. And then out of this tall grass, I started to see people coming toward us. And my mind was racing, like, what's about to happen? Are we going to get extorted? Are they going to ask for a bribe? Like, what's going to happen? But I noticed it was men and women alike. Women in brightly colored Congolese dresses and men in blazers and muddy boots. And without saying much of anything to me at all, they just started rocking our truck back and forth and throwing straw and rocks underneath the wheels. And then somebody yelled in something in the local language, and our driver stepped on the gas and he popped right out of the mud. And mud sprayed everywhere. It got all over everybody. And we were laughing and high-fiving. And we were just like, together, we were celebrating this problem that was solved without anybody really instigating the relationship. And it hit me at this point. So I have now traveled to approximately 75 countries. At this point, I had traveled to probably 40. But it hit me that no matter where I went in the world, it didn't matter what problems I was facing. It didn't matter what conflict I was assessing. It didn't matter what types of people I was accompanying in formulating long-term peace-building strategies. That no matter the issue, I would never find a place on earth where I wasn't dealing with people. People like me who want to laugh, eat good food, educate their children, raise safe families, please God, and die quietly in their sleep. And that if I ever forgot about that I was missing the point of peace building. And so this was a big moment for me. And this is the type of moment that informs the strategy of the Rotary Carter peace building collaboration from my point of view as the director. So finally we made it. I met with the armed group leaders. We subsequently have gone back to Congo several times, partnered with the UN, and we've made great strides in demobilizing over 100 child combatants at this point, and rough estimates of approximately 1,300 to 1,400 armed group members in total, who aren't necessarily children. So the collaboration thus far. We launched officially in March of 2024 this year. We have exactly 1 year to pilot this program, to take it back to Evanston, to propose it as a long-term strategic partnership. We are officially a collaboration, not a partnership. And it's made very clear to me all the time that I need to be very clear about that when I'm presenting to Rotarians. There are 4 pillars of this program. This collaboration, as Mary said, is at the intersection of Rotary's massive global reach and network and the Carter School's globally recognized expertise in peace building. If we can take the best in the world at peace building and partner with the largest in the world networks, what can't we do is the question that I'm asking, right? And so in order to fully integrate the capacities of both institutions and to have a sustainable long-term vision for impact, we've broken it down into 4 main points. Number 1 is the peace building, right? Rotary has always been about peace, but Rotary generally agrees that it needs help because there are many, many, many very, how do I say, like dynamic, sometimes effective, sometimes not so much, approaches to peace building around the world. But what might it look like to calibrate those efforts to make Rotary peace building more excellent, effective, and efficient? And so I'm going to go through each one of these. They all have their own their own slides. So don't think I'm just glazing over these. The second is education. There's already a massive amount of learning that can be done by Rotarians online. My team has studied that. We've conducted surveys to find out how we can supplement that, both in asynchronous learning and online instruction, as well as weekend workshops that we're launching in November, both in the DC area, regionally, and globally. Third is peace salons, which are gatherings of Rotarians towards specific ends in peace building networking, whether it's learning more about a particular conflict, meeting the actors engaged in the conflict, fundraising for a particular event, the demonstration of particular conflict analysis and resolution tactics. These are special gatherings of doing what Rotarians already do really well, which is get together and eat and drink stuff, right? But having a really pointed agenda of what it looks like to equip that particular intimate group of Rotarians toward a very specific end in peace building. And then finally, something called the Better Evidence Project integration, which I'll talk about soon. So, any questions thus far? I'll take a minute and breathe. I'm having a bubbly, which is a non-alcoholic, sugar-free sparkling water. So don't judge me. Take a sip. If you have any questions, please ask them now.
I drink bubbly myself, so good
All
on
right.
ya.
Sheila, thank you for that solidarity. All right. Pressing on. Peace building collaboration. This is pillar number 1. All right. We have broken this down into 2 different possibilities of peace building. Number 1 is the incubation of new ideas. Think economic incubators. Think a bird's nest. You know, it's just an idea, and we bring networks of scholars and practitioners together to think through ideas and partner with particular Rotary clubs in the affected areas to think through their ideas and to find the right funders, find the right connections, and then launch this idea in its pilot form to test said idea. And if it works well in a pilot phase, then go after fundraising to really do the big shebang later. We have a couple of incubator programs that we've already launched, as well as accelerators. So these are really, really good ideas that are already working and they want to grow. Acceleration is taking place in Sri Lanka with a Rotarian named Rukshan Pereira. This guy, whoa. Like if you don't know what Rukshan Pereira is doing in Sri Lanka, please, if you don't do anything else tonight, look up what this guy is doing in Sri Lanka. He is literally going to change the face of peace education in that country. Literally. The Ministry of Education has already jumped on board, and his plan is within the next 3 to 5 years to have a peace education program that focuses on depolarization between the 2 majority ethnic groups in Sri Lanka through childhood education, through the arts. And he's already done it in several schools. And if he gets to 10,000, that's every school in the country, which is pretty amazing. So we are helping him accelerate this program through a scholarly study of its affect to help fine-tune the approach and to help him fundraise to get to that next level. And you know, the Sri Lankan currency right now is so deflated that actually even small donations of a couple $100s can take this program to the next school. It is an extremely ripe moment in Sri Lanka for this program. The 2 incubators that we're doing, one is for the Cyprus effort between Greek and Turkish Cypriots, with a longtime peace builder and Rotarian, actually in Washington, or is it Oregon? I think it's Oregon. His name is Harry Anastasio. And lastly, here in the DC area, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Arthur Romano is putting together a program which helps local peace actors map out the conflict in their areas and then prescribe peace building solutions to local Rotary clubs in order to be more effective and well informed. And we'll be reproducing that effort before the end of this first year, likely in a place in either Northern Ireland, Colombia, or both. Faculty collaboration is kind of key. Like why partner with the best conflict resolution school in the world if you're not getting the best advice from faculty? So we've worked with faculty to partner them with each one of these either incubators or accelerators, along with students, postdocs, doctoral students, master's students, undergrads, to help kind of drive the program forward in a scholarly way and to advise the practitioners who may not have formal peace building education how to think about their programming in ways that are more scholarly informed, but then also the scholars are the ones who are also getting to learn from the practitioners. So it's not a 1 + 1 = 2 equation. We're thinking more geometrically, like what does 1 + 1 = 3 look like? And then finally, modality, construction and reproduction. So in building out this first year's programming, we are writing an extremely lengthy report. It's actually going to look more like a book than an article about the programs that we've run, so that we can produce a 6-part series to distribute to Rotarians around the globe, about 6 of the most popular ways to conduct peace building as modalities, to inform sort of the Rotary laity about what these sort of prescribed modalities might look like, and then how they can contextualize it in the area of their choice. So we'll be building out that asset. Education. Education is going to be specific, and it's not. Don't think of this pillar as education as peace building, because that's in the peace building pillar. This is all about equipping Rotarians with the latest and most pervasive ideas in peacemaking, peace building, scholarship, and skills and ideas. Sorry, I keep having to move you guys around. Your faces are blocking my screen. Inter and intra Rotary peace building is a huge focus. We have interviewed dozens, if not hundreds, of Rotarians, and one of the main asks that we get is, can you help us solve our own conflicts within our clubs, or between our clubs, or between our district governors, or between our presidents, right? And so we're actually focusing on peace within Rotary in this educational offering up front. Again, this is siloed from the peace building pillar. And we are integrating this programming with existing Carter School structures for efficiency. So we're using Carter School faculty, Carter School resources, Carter School directors. We're using a outstandingly professional film team to film asynchronous learning modules. And then we'll be hosting workshops both in the DC area and abroad, to test out what like a weekend workshop looks like to most effectively equip Rotarians with, a 2 or 3 day seminar, rather than stretching it out over the course of 8 or 10 weeks or months. We don't know what this is going to look like in the long term. We're just testing different modalities in this regard, but we're working with people, all the various peace centers and the fellows, as well as IEP, which I know most people here probably know about. So we're taking full advantage of everything that Rotary has to offer already. We are committing not to reinvent the wheel, because that wastes everybody's time and everybody's money, and instead developing supplementary activities that can really solidify what Rotarians still are asking for in peace education. And then finally, we see this as a way to perhaps generate future income for the program, because indeed this collaboration will have to have financial security in order to continue. But we'll see. We don't really know how that's going to play out just yet. Peace salons. So we actually, since I wrote this slide, we've actually developed 6 modalities of reasons to have a peace salon. As I've mentioned in the beginning, these reasons include educating yourself about a current conflict by inviting people from that area to come talk about it, demonstrating conflict resolution skills, perhaps even by inviting conflicting actors to come talk about their issues at the salons, illuminating peace building processes that are occurring so that people might get behind them and put their finances or their networks toward these processes, networking between people who want to learn more from each other about peace building activities or a certain conflict. And then there's 2 more, and I should have written them down, but I didn't. But the whole idea behind salons is that these are directed gatherings that are intimate. They're in people's homes, people's clubs. We had one at the Library of Congress for 20 or 30 people to get together and really think through particular puzzles of conflict analysis and resolution, either in their area or abroad. And we are working on the ability to reproduce these processes in such a way that salons after March of 2025 can be something that we can prescribe for Rotarians around the globe, and they can take it and run with it. It doesn't have to be a Carter School directed thing. And then finally, the Better Evidence Project. The Better Evidence Project is a program that was launched several years ago. I shouldn't say several, a few years ago at the Carter School, which exists in its present form as a tool which is essentially scraping the internet of instances of peace building successes and perhaps failures that are searchable through any number of keywords. So if you're thinking about geography, or if you're thinking about the type of conflict, or if you think about the type of actors, the point is to be able to go into the Better Evidence Project and it be its own searchable repository of examples of peace building globally and throughout history. And the collaborative effort with Rotary is we are constructing Rotary's own sort of room within the Better Evidence Project, where if you are a Rotarian and you want to note instances of peace building that were specifically linked to Rotary and Rotary clubs, you'll be able to do that. We will also be able to highlight in the future what is being done through this collaboration and what is going to be done through Rotary peace building actors around the world. And the hope is to be able to inform aspiring actors, Rotary peace builders in the future to say, you know, here were the lessons learned. Here's what they did well. Here's what they did poorly. But then also, again, to avoid that reinvention of the wheel. We want to make sure that if somebody has attempted something that we get the word out about that, because I think, you know, again, I've talked to hundreds of Rotarians now. What I find is that one of the main challenges is that people kind of get the same idea, but there's no way to share those ideas organically and uniquely within Rotary. So how do you get involved and learn more? This was actually my presentation in Singapore. So I had this giant QR code up at the Peace Park. If you want to take your cell phone, this is going to take you to, I believe, our website. And then there are a couple of surveys that we still have going out there about kind of your perceptions of peace building and education. And that's it. I love giving this presentation to Rotarians because especially people who are coming to gatherings like this uniquely, we want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. There are a million Rotarians and there's only a few of us. And so admittedly, I've heard several of the same ideas. Like, yes, we are getting plugged in with the Peace Fellows. Yes, we're getting plugged in with Peace Clubs. But you know, we want to hear from you about how did this presentation sit with you? Is it inspiring? Does it raise questions? Does it raise concerns? And now would be that time. And I'm happy to answer questions about anything in peace building, not just this collaboration. We actually just launched the Center for Peace Technology at the Carter School with a very generous grant. So I'm working on that now as well. And I was able to hire a couple new people to help me run this collaboration. So things are growing rapidly. Yes, Francis.
Francis, you're muted.
I apologize for being so inept. Charles, among Rotarians, there are also a number of people whose academic careers have touched more or less on peace building and are similar to yours.
Sure.
Would you consider having a gathering of people like that who are interested actually in research and the applications in their own teaching and in their own clubs?
Who are also
It would be a
Rotarians.
unique group. Yeah, just an idea.
So let's see. 6 months, hundreds of Rotarians. You are the first person to recommend that. Congratulations. That is a fantastic idea. I would love that. I think it's highly necessary, and I've never thought of that. So yes, and if you could help me with that, that would be amazing.
I'll do it.
Awesome.
Sign up.
Would love
I'll
that.
be in touch with you.
Thank you.
It'll be-
Mike. Muted, Mike.
You're Mike, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Charles.
Sure.
I have this question. How do you see the collaboration relating to other organizations that have been involved in peace building or have been involved in peacekeeping? And specifically, I'll ask about the United Nations.
Right. Yeah. As it would concern this collaboration or just writ large?
I'm sorry?
Is your question related to this collaboration specifically, or are you asking that question just kind of generally?
Well, I assume the collaboration in the interest of learning more about peace building
Yeah,
and teaching others about peace building
sure.
might do research or reach out to other organizations that have had this involvement in the past, presumably should have it now. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking specifically about the United Nations.
Sure. I will tell you, the older I get, I'm turning 40 this year. So I've been doing this for 20 years. And the older I get, the more I've learned that if I think that I have a really stellar idea, it is wildly likely that someone at art has already thought of it and they've already tried. Right. And so before I do anything ever with research, investment, peace building, travel, right? I try as hard as possible and I pay people, several people, to prove me wrong, to say, I need you to tell me through research that this idea is not unique. And like 95% of the time, they're able to do that, right? And so if we're going to go out there and state that we feel like this is a best practice, if we find a group that's already doing it, it is our ethical responsibility to support them and not start another wheel competing for resources, time, energy, and attention alongside them. So that's number one. Number two is even if something isn't already being done, there are experts that exist in certain modalities, approaches, deliverables, analysis, right? That if I'm going to try to affect change in a certain area, I have got to go out and find as many willing partners as possible who know how to do things better than I do. This is a silly example, but several years back, I was like, maybe I should get a law degree. Like a lot of times things come up for me that are based in legal work, right? And one of my mentors, she said, how about not ever doing that? How about instead you stay the course, you're a PhD in peace and conflict resolution, and you get so darn good at doing that that you can hire the best lawyers who have done that their whole lives. That way you don't have a third-rate lawyer in yourself attempting to do this work. Instead, go hire the best, right? And so I thought about that as it would concern all areas of approach, right? Go hire the best lawyers, the best journalists, the best filmmakers, the best mediators, the best linguists, the best technologists, the best engineers to try and solve these problems rather than doing it ourselves. And then finally, institutions like the UN, right? There's a permeability there that institutions like the UN have that no one will ever have, right? So I've been in talks with several people, including one particular undersecretary, we're working to build the type of access needed to affect change at the national level. There's one particular project that I'm working on right now that I can't discuss publicly, but it would involve ways to empower minors around the world to be able to always be able to prove that they are minors and to be able to maintain their agency, their benefits, their inheritance, et cetera. And I've been in talks with the UN about how if we develop a tool, we can't be the ones who are implementing it. It has to be the governments. It has to be the legal entities, but the UN has access to those. So we always try to find the most effective entity in order to execute particular patterns of approach. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it certainly sounded good to me. So,
Charles, we have a long list of hands in the air.
Right.
Arthur was the first one. Arthur Kanagas. You're muted, Arthur.
Okay, yes, hi. I'm Arthur Canigis, and I'm so excited by this collaboration. We started out working with that George Mason School of Conflict Resolution way back in the late 80s. And in fact, the very first graduate of your peace and conflict resolution program there, Diane Laresh, loved, and we were collaborating with her on this bully proof project that uses animal characters to teach conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And she wrote on our webpage, she said, whenever I got mad, all my years of conflict training went right out the window. Now I use bully proof to anchor my training. I think, B, how can I bust out of this conflict and come out in a different way? You, am I understanding what's going on inside this person? What's triggering my hot buttons? L, am I listening? Am I doing reflective listening? Am I really letting this person know I'm hearing them? By the time I get through the 10 bully proof characters, my fear and anger are gone, and I'm able to handle the situation rationally. It's a great it's a great checklist for empowerment, she said. I don't know, we can't do screen sharing here yet, can we, or can we?
No, Charles, and do you have a question?
So my question is, you're mentioning working on DC some pilot projects in the DC schools. Might there be some interest in this program that uses puppetry, drama, innovative ways of having these animal characters that teach conflict resolution, to possibly collaborate on a pilot project in the Washington, D.C. schools, to test this out as a program that might be used. And I know this is too early to really resolve that, but maybe is there a way we can start a discussion on that and maybe share after the meeting some more about this program and consider such a collaboration?
So the beauty of this collaboration is that I'm not doing any of the work. We have Rotarians who are doing it alongside our faculty, right? I'm the guy in the middle being like, the catalyst, the gas to the flame. So I, in a most blessed way, can say, I absolutely don't know. But I'm happy to put you in touch with the people who could say yes or no to that, because they're the ones who are working on it, not me. So be sure and leave me with your email, and I'll connect you with the folks in DC.
Well, I will do that. I also want to mention that the way this ties into Rotary is that I'm collaboratively, we're doing these mega meetings with the Rotary leadership, and we've had President Stephanie Urchik and John Huco and Gordon McAnally in these Rotary mega meetings. We have sometimes with over 1,000 people, and we have one coming up day after tomorrow. I'll put it in the chat, with Rotary Action Group for Peace and with anyway, key players. I won't take more time, but I'll put that in the chat. So yes, I'll also put my email address, and let's follow both on that and ways maybe we can get you in this program in these mega meetings that we're holding.
Great, thank you very much, Arthur.
Thank you.
Dr. Pietro, you have a question. And you are muted. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll try to be brief and direct. A couple of questions for Charles. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, so for starters, for me, I think I'm interested with the idea of the Peace Salon. And I don't know if there is a methodology or a recording of how that plays out. I would love to interrogate it more so that we can adapt it here in Nigeria. Then secondly as well, I'd like to know, you made mention severally about interviewing Rotarians and getting feedback from Rotarians. I'm concerned about the demography because the QR code you displayed, we filled it over here severally, and personally I didn't get a feedback, and I was wondering whether it's from those samples that you are referring to as feedback or something, or is there like another group you are interacting with that you get these informations from? Then for the pilots, we're also concerned that is it just limited to the DC, or is there a possibility of these interventions coming to other parts of the world? Because I would love to see these programs in Africa and especially Nigeria as well. So these are the three concerns that I think I should raise at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you.
So yeah, as I mentioned, we've got one in Sri Lanka, one for Cyprus, and then one in DC. And the hope is to build out modalities that can be reproduced anywhere. the demographics, you know, you're I think it says doctor. Yeah, are you PhD or MD?
Come again? PhD, yeah.
PhD, yeah. Sampling diversity is always going to be a question when you put out surveys like that. I actually had the privilege of going to Singapore for the Global Rotary Convention, so I had like a static audience from all over the world that I was able to give this QR code out to. And we have through that, and then interviewing several dozens of Rotarians, been able to put together at least enough to launch a pilot. But if RI picks this up as a strategic partnership, the necessity for us to get to people like you and say, hey, this is what we are doing. This is where we would like to go with it. Please give us your feedback. It's going to be a second round of analysis of what we did and how we can do it better in the future. And then I don't remember your third and first point. What was your first point?
The Peace Salon, if there's a recording or a methodology to it.
Yes, we actually have a full, like almost 100-page document that explains the order of operations for all 4 of these pillars. And one of those sections is the salons. And if you will email me, I will happily share that section so you can see kind of what we're up to, because we do want to reproduce these after March of 2025, and would love your feedback on that.
Great. And Nancy Milton?
Thank you. I'm from District 5080 in Washington. We're an international district that's Eastern Washington, Idaho, and into British Columbia. And my
Moscow,
question,
Idaho?
well, yeah.
My in-laws are all from there. I love that
Oh,
area.
okay, yeah, we're up that way. My question is about the peace salons, Charles, and thank you for your presentation too. When you mentioned, and I would love to get a copy of that section too, but when you mentioned they were directed gatherings, I'm just kind of wondering who's directing them, how, can you just give a little quick
Yeah.
information about that?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that question. So what I have learned about being a Rotarian is that Rotarians, A, love being Rotarians, and B, love gathering with other Rotarians. Sometimes at the expense of what should be C, and that is getting stuff done, right? So like we want to ensure that there is an integrity of purpose in the peace salons, and that it doesn't just become another reason to drink ginger ale, right? And I know, and I say that affectionately, not critically, right? So the way that we'll do it is we'll have a subject matter like expert, like whatever that is, if it's education, if it's conflict specific, if it's demonstration, if it's fundraising, right? We'll have somebody who is there to be able to speak to the theme of the night. And if it's a specific geography, we want to make sure we have local people at the salon. If it's about Cyprus, we need Cypriots there. And then we'll have a local Rotarian who is kind of championing it for their district. So they'll work with the SME, the subject matter expert, to ensure that the salon, the right invitees are brought in, and that the integrity of the purpose stands, and that they can sort of monitor and evaluate and give us and our team feedback about how to make the program even more effective. Eventually, what's going to happen with Rotary Peace Salons, if this thing launches, is that it'll get so far beyond our purview that we won't have any ability to really control it. And I think that would be a really great outcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mary Clark, you have a question.
Actually, I have a comment. I neglected to mention when I was giving my background that Peter Kyle was really instrumental in guiding David in the process. And the process was very much informed by his role as Dean of the Representatives to the United Nations. And the Rotary Club that Charles and I belong to, actually, our president is the Rotary representative at UNICEF. And Judith Dement, the just past dean of the representatives for the UN, just very recently gave us a fantastic presentation. So there's definitely some cross-fertilization with what's going on with the UN.
That's fantastic. One question, Charles, are you comfortable if we put your email in the chat?
More than comfortable.
There will be a lot of questions after the thought, and this is going very well. Steve, you have your hand up, and you are muted.
No, I'm
Now,
not. No, I'm not. Charles, okay, so yeah, for everybody, I used to be in 5080, and then I moved from Spokane to just north of Seattle. So now I'm in 5050, also international with Canadian, Vancouver, etc. Charles, just when I was a high school student, I saw an ad in a magazine, and it said 267 years of world peace in all of history. 267 years in all of history where there was no wars on the planet.
Right.
And I said, my God, I'm going to find those years. And I spent, and this is no Google, this is no internet, this is back in the 70s. And I spent hours, days in the library researching every single, the big timeline, 20 feet long, every war indicated, trying to find those 267 years. So the big issue I have here is like 80–90% of the discussion is about teaching, learning, education, but actual conflict resolution. What are the conflicts? Well, in fact, what's the definition of conflict? Because I hear a lot of stuff about kids and stuff like that, and I'm not sure how this is peace building. I don't see the exact ties, the linkage. I would love to hear about conflict, specific conflicts, for example, Israel or Ukraine. Those are conflicts, and I'm sure there are many more in Africa. I'd love to hear about how we can address those.
Sure. Yeah, so a couple things there. So there's in scholarship and more so being adopted in the field of practice, like there's a difference between what's known as peacemaking and peace building. I'm sure you're aware of it,
Yep.
Steve. Yeah, for everyone else, if you don't know, peacemaking is when you engage in an effort to get people to stop harming one another, right? But you don't necessarily address the roots and the longevity and the sustainability of that effort. So peacemaking is, can we get people to stop fighting? Peace building is when you then address the roots of the conflict which led to the violence in the first place. And peace building can come before violent conflict erupts, or it can come even after peacemaking has occurred. And so it's all about the systems and the structures built into society which led to conflict. And so when we say peace building, let's not conflate it with peacemaking. And peacemaking is a much greater challenge in this context, because the one thing that Rotary is adamant about, and I think for good reason, is that they can't be political, right? They say that all the time to everyone. Every Rotarian around the world knows that, right? So how do you peacemake without getting political is a question that we're asking, and we're really seriously addressing when it comes to sort of equipping people with understanding how to do this. I would actually venture to say that, like, what is happening between Sinhala and Tamil in Sri Lanka is a conflict, and it is active peace building, and we are doing that. What's happening in Cyprus between Turks and Cypriots is a conflict, right? Now, are we getting people to stop pulling triggers passively? Perhaps, right? We're not diving into Kiev or into Gaza or into Syria in this pilot. But if Rotarians around the world want to equip themselves to be those types of actors, we possess at the Carter School, we possess the skills, ideas, theories necessary to equip Rotarians to do that. We just weren't going to launch with that in this first year because of the high stakes nature of that game. As well, there is like a liability issue, obviously, if we're like, go to Lviv and then head east, right? Like, we're not going to tell Rotarians like, these 6 steps and take the blue pill. But your point is very well taken and extremely necessary, because part of the issue that I have found in my, as I said, 2 decades, right, is that people love being conflict analysts. They love saying what's wrong, right? Not necessarily trying to figure out how to change that wrong. But then when action begins to take place, a lot of times the simpler answers are the ones that are like easiest to pick off the tree. But really diving down into like, why is it that people are killing each other can be extremely challenging, frustrating, and take a long time.
Yeah.
But man, like I'll tell you, some of the best people in the world exist at the Carter School who know how to ask those questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was a very, very good question. I really appreciate it.
Quanta, you have a question?
Yes, I have been thinking about this, and since you have mentioned about the politics and peace, is it possible for an education institution to develop a curriculum for people who want to apply and become a candidate to be the leader of the world or leader of nations? So the leaders come without having the knowledge, perhaps the skills and understanding of conflict resolution. So perhaps it should become a prerequisite that they take such an education before they apply for leadership. I
So-
just wanted to throw that idea. Thank you.
So I will tell you, can you see my screen? Your name's Quanta?
Yes, it is. Mhm.
So my screen here, outgoing leader of the PLA. I glazed past this. I actually founded an institution at the Carter School with the support of my dean, something called the Political Leadership Academy. And the entire point of that academy is to do exactly what you just said.
Wow. By the way, I am Turkish also, so I see Alparslan is your dean.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
The Turkish culture surrounding him and his friends is I love kind of like learning more about Turkey the more I get to know Dean Ozden.
And
But yeah, if you're interested in the PLA, email me. I can connect you. I relinquished leadership of that program to a guy named Dr. Jeff Helsing, who now runs it.
And Charles's email is in chat for those that would like to communicate with him later. Vasante, you have a question? You are now muted.
Thank you, Jim. I had two questions. One is that you said some documentation is available in terms of peace interventions. How does one access that and add to whatever documentation that each one has done in their own spaces?
Yeah. So to add to what's happening.
How does technology, that peace technology project work? Thank you, Charles.
Sure. So to be able to add to what we're doing, that's the Better Evidence Project. So the idea is to, if you have work, you have methodologies, you have theories, we're going to be bringing them into a repository where then anybody can come access it. The methodologies that we're publishing is something that we're going to have done in March of 2025. So look for that. It'll be kind of a 6-part series, and I'm thinking kind of like a boxed set of methodologies that we're producing that kind of illuminate what we've done through this project, and then also is it kind of a deep dive on different methodologies that we would recommend as a starting place for Rotary. And it's going to be volume 1, right? I mean, the hope is that we continue to publish this.
This meeting is being recorded.
The idea that there's only 6 methodologies is a laughable thought, but we have to start somewhere. And then finally, the Center for Peace Technology is something that is completely unrelated to this collaboration. It is simply the second half of my job at the Carter School. And as we go along, I'm beginning to distribute the leadership of the Rotary collaboration to people who are smarter than me. And eventually someone will take this over probably in March.
Just to show you how committed the people are, I just realized Arzu Applegut is with us. Arzu, what time is it for you?
It's 4:30.
4:30 in the morning in Turkey. Thank you for joining us. One question that I have, you've probably already become aware, in Rotary, we have some very educated, severe activists that are really out doing a lot of things. The majority of Rotarians are still saying, what do we do? Which is quite a mixture of levels of information. Is is there a way of dealing? How do you deal with the tremendous variety of backgrounds, knowledge, and information that we now have?
Question for me, yeah.
Question for you.
Yeah, that might be the question. Frankly. I don't know. Because there's a temptation, as with many things, to sort of, and I say this respectfully, to sort of cater to the weakest link, right? To like say like the most basic, Rotarian who just joined and maybe they're from Arkansas where I'm from and they've never been outside the country, etc. We want them to be able to understand what peace building is, right? Or do we take the strongest, the people who are already engaged, the people who have a repertoire, the people who have traveled, and say, how do we make them even better? Right? Or do we do it somewhere in between? And the answer is like, I just don't know yet. Because I think there's faults to both of the scenarios that I just said, but then anywhere in between is also going to isolate. And so, we always think of sort of like bell curves, right? There's always like the middle and the extreme to one side and the extreme to the other side. And I think what we're going to probably have to do is figure out where is that cross section of efficacy, where a majority of Rotarians, or at least a large number of Rotarians, can greatly be impacted by our work. And then perhaps now I'm just having ideas, then perhaps have like master classes for people who are much more advanced and have beginner classes for people who are not. So I don't know, maybe that's the answer.
I have to share with you, I asked my minister that question, or a minister one time, that a good retired Methodist minister, because when we go out and talk, we're talking to people with a lot of different backgrounds. And I said, when you get in the pulpit, there's a lot of variety of views. How do you change and how do you make a difference? And he said, I preach to the middle and change one at a time. So I thought
it's really interesting that you said that, Jim, because like literally that is what I had in my mind as well, because I've heard pastors and priests say the exact same thing. Yeah.
We're over. Any more questions? This has been absolutely wonderful.
There are some questions in the chat box, though.
There were some questions earlier. Are you working with any particular cities now, particularly on the West Coast?
Not directly, but we certainly want to.
And what would that look like? When you say
it will likely be a couple of routes. Number one will be if a Rotary club is able to procure a certain amount of support to launch a peace building pilot, incubator, or accelerator, that they could essentially skip the line. Because right now financing is something that we have, but it's limited, both in amount and in time. So if a club can procure its own amount of funding, and this doesn't have to be $100,000 or $200,000, right? Like we're working with $20,000 to $30,000 in some instances, then they can jump the line, and I will happily pair that club with a Carter School professor to launch whenever they're ready. Secondly, would be salons, where we were thinking that we would kind of like go quickly into reproducing these. But what we found is that actually there's more, how do I say, like a soft touch that's needed as we're launching these. And so once March hits, then we'll essentially start taking like building a queue of clubs that want to host a peace salon, and we'll equip them to do that in March once we get the green light from Evanston that this is a long-term affair. So if you want to get involved, those would be two different ways. And essentially it's kind of just like a patience game right now. But we would love to line up willing actors in this regard. But lastly, there's always going to be a financial support element to all this. And while we've been told like not to fundraise for this project until we get the green light in March, we're happy to start talking to people about how their clubs could get behind this. And also, if your club has the desire to build peace within this ecosystem of support, that's the only thing that we can actually take money for now, is if people want to build peace, we're happy to do that now.
Charles, I want to listen to, give you a voice to one more person before we leave. Dennis, you have a comment to make, I believe.
Let's see. I guess, yes. I think while we do certain things with the Carter School and everything, I think we can start today. And again, I seriously say, be Rotarian and be a Rotarian peace builder and lead by leadership. And we have because I think everything starts also with values and principles. And one of the things that I noticed Mark Matthews put in why and why we do things. And I think one of the things that will be helpful in any program is start with our goal, what we want to see, what's our vision of peace. And I think then once you have a vision, then you can start working towards it and using all the tools that might be available through the Carter School and other places to achieve your goal. So that's what I have to say. Be Rotarian.
I do want to hear from David Newman has a couple questions yet I'd like to get to. David?
Before I get to David,
I'm sorry.
I just want to say I've spotted Summer Lewis, who's here. She is representative of the IEP effort. Hi, Summer. If you guys need a place to start, you want to start now, go find out what IEP is doing with Rotary.
But don't say too much there because I'm about to cover that for you.
Sorry. Okay, cool.
I'm going to talk about you, Summer, but David Newman first. David, you're muted.
Yes, thank you very much. I put the question in chat because I'm in a public space at the moment, but I'll just move into another room. Hang on.
Oh, here I can look them up.
Yeah. I am somebody who deeply respects Rich Rubenstein and others from the Carter School, and I have a profound interest in a extremely positive, optimally beneficial relationship with the Carter School through with Rotarians. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and I have, after 52 years as a lawyer, including leadership in some government positions and multiple volunteer positions, come to the conclusion at this stage of my life that unless we humans act, advocate, and bring about the co-creation of a just world order, we have no future at all. So we can have all kinds of educated academics and peace builders working on the ground, doing wonderful things in their community. But it may be too late unless we address the immediate, imminent threat and risk of nuclear weapons, climate change, and a global world order, which is abused every day, especially by, and most significantly by, the five powers that control the world: the United States, Russia, France, UK, People's Republic of China, all of them who committed by treaty in 1969, enforced treaty 1970, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We still have nuclear arms. They agreed to disarmament. So given that, given the rhetoric and lies about a rules-based order, there's no such thing. It's a rules-based order only in the eyes of those who know how to abuse those rules or take advantage of their inadequacy. So unless, especially, academic institutions in the United States, especially the Carter Center, take leadership on those issues, the United States will not earn any of the credibility necessary for those changes to happen. So that is my candid and powerful contribution to this important meeting tonight. I will continue to be a strong advocate for the global human family, fearlessly, with nothing to gain, never taking a cent for anything I say or do. So my hope is that the service above self organization of Rotary, a network that has the potential to mainstream those kinds of changes across the globe, can, with the help of the Carter School, bring about the essential immediate changes necessary to happen without delay. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles, last comments?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just always, as I said in the meeting, I'm always honored, and I feel privileged to be able to have the mic for an hour in front of a group of the caliber of which I can only assume is amazing. To be able to speak to 40 people who you're here because you're peace builders. I'm humbled in a way that it's beyond words. What I would prefer is that each of you have an hour to speak into my life. Tonight, it just was the other way around. I do not take these opportunities for granted, and I just wanted to say thank you for your attention. I really, really hope that if there's any spark of like how you would want to contribute to this collaboration in any way, get in touch with us. And I will last say my wife is in Thailand working on development work tonight, and I am alone with my 18-month-old who is going to be awake in about 7.5 hours. So I'm going to jet. Thank you so much for everything. I assume Summer's got the floor. Me departing before Summer speaks does not speak to how much I admire what they're doing as I log off. So is there anything else you need from me, Jim?
Give me 2 minutes.
2.
Charles, we are indeed grateful for the work you're doing and the information you bring. We thank you so much. We all thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your expertise, and this is a very, very exciting program. Again, we thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to talk next month. We're very indeed honored to be joined by Summer Lewis. Summer Lewis is the coordinator for the Rotary International and the Institute for Economics and Peace Partnership. And she's the Rotary Peace Fellow also, and so much more, and a fantastic flute player. Her presentation will be No Peace Without Connection, the Rotary IEP Partnership. Summer will be definitely answering the question, what do we do next? Again, Charles, we are most grateful and we thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful day, night, whatever it is where you're at.
And all, let's live in peace.